I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
What's up, Mysonne Lennon?
Greetings, Tamika D. Mallory. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing okay. Summertime.
Until Freedom down today. A little Until Freedom hat on.
Summertime. I love summer.
Too hot. It's way too hot outside.
We say that every week. Every week we say hot.
I went outside and I seen the devil licking somebody's face out there.
But it's better than it was last week. A little bit, but it's better.
Yeah, the heat is still on hell, man.
It is. I mean, that's just a reality. I think, when you hear certain groups of people trying to deny that climate change is real, I mean, it's actually playing out before our eyes, like we see it. So can't tell me that it's not real. Anywho, I'm really about to change my profession. I'm telling you, because I would like to focus on quality control. That's what I want to focus on.
That's the thing.
I want to focus on. I realized that in my third life, because I have one that is an organizer for social justice, I have another one that is an event planner, and then I have a third one that should be in customer service and quality control. I had an experience during my family reunion where, I checked into an Airbnb, and when I got there, beautiful space in a town that does not have much. My family's town in Monroeville, Alabama. There's two different sides to it, with like with many areas that's heavily populated with Black folks. You got downtown, some kind of some would say uptown, and there's some white money, and there of course are Black affluent people there as well. But it is a very, very, very country town, small town. And so when you think of, and there used to be businesses that were amazing, right? Factories and lots of businesses, and all of that was purchased by big business, and then they shut production down. And so for years and years and years, those jobs have not returned. So there is the tale of two cities. Again, there are people who are retired, people who, moved there for various reasons, to teach college, to, maybe it's just they found a good town that they like to spend the rest of their lives. You have that. And then you have people who are absolutely struggling and really suffering with a lot of desperation. So when you see beautiful Airbnbs popping up because people are starting to invest in this area again, it's really cool. Shout out to my cousin, Ola's Garden, Kim Abney, who has opened up a number of rentals and Airbnb properties, and they are phenomenal. Beautiful. You walk in, the details is just like his mama, my auntie Ola Mae Abney, taught him. This other Airbnb, very nice. Walked in, loved it. Beautiful. But as soon as my brother Milton is with me, so it's not just me, because I know y'all gonna say, oh, she always got some. Soon as we walked into the bedroom, he's helping me put my suitcases up. You clearly see a stain on the bed. Then he pulls the cover back and there's another stain. Now, these two stains are more than likely clean. They're more than likely clean, right? Mm-hmm. And in fact, I'm just gonna make this my thought of the day today, because it's just, these two stains are there. More than likely, it's clean and it's wear and tear. It looks like an old oil stain or something, but the bed looks clean. It's just, it has these two stains on it. So immediately, I reach out to the management and say, there's stains in the bed. And Their response, and by the way, I don't hear anything back. It's going on 3 hours before I had to send an email. I'm going through all of this to get the attention of the individual. And eventually she calls me back and she's like, yeah, well, but it's definitely clean. I understand what you're saying, and I believe that it's clean, but I should not have to sleep in a bed that has stains on it, regardless of whether it is clean or not. Whether it's clean or not is not the point here. The point is there should not be stains in the bed. Now, let me just say from the onset that it was corrected, but it was corrected after having to go back and forth with this woman several times. And then eventually she said to me, she said, well, this one is busy, which is the lady who is the cleaning person. She herself, this woman, was with her family, and she's telling me all of these things and continuing to say, and then texting me that I know for a fact those sheets were washed, that bed was clean, it's clean. Still not.
She didn't get what was going on.
She did not understand that when you check into a hotel, you check into a rental property, you don't want to see any type of stain. And by the way, that is called wear and tear. So what you do when it has a stain on it, it's time to throw it out and get new ones. This happens all the time when you are running. Well, no one else has ever complained. Meanwhile, my brother, he's like you. He ain't trying to have, Milton, it's not that serious. It's fine. When he looked at it, he was like, nah, this is a stain. Like, and I'm the one. And all of the guys around me would be like, oh boy, here she go. The glass, the fork, the this, the that, and the third. But even he was like, no, that's a stain. It's 2 stains. And it's one under the comforter in the bed. My thought of the day today is that, of course, as a Black woman, I should be able to say and defend my position. As Black women, and I would imagine Black people, we are constantly shrinking ourselves so that we don't upset, annoy, agitate others, or bring further harm to ourselves. So all of the hotels in this particular area is places that I personally I don't like to stay. This is my mother's hometown. I love it there. Love it there. Grew up there. Can't wait to go back. But I don't like staying in the hotels. So the idea that there are Airbnb properties that are very nice popping up is really, really good. And I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have a bad rating, or, that where these people can write whatever they want. I've already been down the road with Airbnb where somebody blatantly lied. The management company blatantly lied. Airbnb knew it from reading all of the messages back and forth between us, but still told me that they cannot delete the comments, the review that was left for me, because it still is up to the will of the property manager, even though they read screenshots and saw that it was a lie. And it's very basic. They tried to say that I had an additional person in the house above the people that was supposed to be there. But then it was proven that that was the driver who dropped off our bags and was only in the house for maybe 15 minutes. And it was proven in the messages, but they still left on my comment thing, my review in Airbnb, that I had an additional person in the house. And so I violated the rules, right? And Airbnb could not and would not do anything about it. So therefore, here I am dealing with this sheet situation. And instead of me doing what I know how to do, which is to write and be very clear about why this is problematic, and to make my point, and also to demand of this woman to stop telling me like I'm a child over and over again that the sheets are clean, I am unable to do that because I need to try to protect my name, my brand, myself. Physically, who knows? Like, this is a white woman in a country town somewhere. I don't know what the hell she might do. I have no idea. I don't know who her husband is. I don't know who her children are. So I don't want to get into a back and forth with this woman. So ultimately, if you read my messages, I'm saying my apologies. I'm sorry. I'm the freaking customer. I'm paying. And I'm apologizing to the lady and trying to be as nice as possible to try to de-escalate, or at least whatever you want to call it, diffuse any possibility that this situation will somehow backfire on me. And I just feel like that is the most uncomfortable for the rest of my trip. It was in the back of my mind that this woman had been extremely rude to me. I mean, it goes on, and we don't have the time to talk about it today, but it was nothing that I could really do because I wanted to be in a comfortable place where I could stay for my family reunion and also not interrupt other people for feeling like they needed to protect me. So, you know, it's a very uncomfortable place that we as Black people are constantly trying to shrink ourselves so that we don't upset other people, even when they're doing us wrong.
Yeah, that's really a real thing. I go through it all the time. I try not to be as aggressive when I'm communicating with certain people, understanding that I speak with a level of passion that I've been told is aggressive and scares people. A lot of times in certain situations where I don't even think I'm wrong, I apologize because, like you said, you fear the backlash of what can come out the situation. We constantly have to do that, and knowing how picky you are, and there's nothing wrong with being picky when you're paying your money for something. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's customer service. Like, I play with you a lot. I'm like, oh gosh, you're gonna go. But the reality of the situation is, it's not like you're wrong. You don't want dirty silverware. You don't want dirty sheets. You don't want dirty things. You don't want to overlook that as a stain on you, and you don't really have to, because when you provide a service, especially with people who have to lay in their heads and living quarters, it should be immaculate. Actually, it should be an immaculate space to where the sheets where people have to lay their body on, they don't know if this is a fucking cum stain or whatever stain that comes from somebody else. Like, nobody should have to guess what kind of stain is on the sheet and the blanket. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't see that you're willing to move past it, then you shouldn't have to. And when you bring it to someone who is providing the services to you, when you bring it to their attention, it shouldn't be any pushback. It should just be like, oh, I apologize. Even though they're clean, I understand. I apologize. I'm gonna make sure I get you guys some fresh sheets. And that's it. It really shouldn't be much more than that. But that's just not what we are, and unfortunately, we live in a time where, especially as Black people, that we, like you said, we have to try not to say as much and try to cause as less problems, because we always going to be seen as, and unless it's a videotape or something, just like you said, you had the whole screenshots of the text messages which showed that somebody lied on you, and you still had to deal with the backlash. So it's just like, a lot of times you wonder, is it even worth it? You got to weigh your options. Do I even stand up for myself, or do I be quiet, because I know standing up for myself can get me ostracized and ridiculed. So it's a lot, man.
And meanwhile, this white woman got to walk away from the situation. And by the way Airbnb works, for people who don't know, you make a review first, and then she makes a review after. So they don't get to see it until after they make their review. But nonetheless, you make a review first, and then they make a review. So for me, I'm just like, systems and customer service and quality control needs a new focus. It really does, because people are spending their money for services that they don't like. Products are coming. Listen, the way in which the clothes are being made, everything is just being thrown together. And people are basically being forced to I don't know what you call it. I got some mousse for my hair, and the top of the mousse bottle was cracked open. And they were trying to tell me, oh, there's no way to exchange it. And this, and that. I had to go all the way to the corporate office to get $5. But if you mail me something and it's broken, you're supposed to replace it. Like, how dare you even think you can have a policy that says that you don't have to? So this is something that for me is a real passion. I have no idea the process of getting, scooting myself from one world to the next. But I wish that and when I go and come back, that I will be in quality control and customer service.
Well, listen, man, I know if you in customer service, the customer service is going to be immaculate, because what you demand from customer service is pretty much what we all should. Like I said, I joke about it a lot, but we should have clean silver. We should have people that, you know what I'm saying? We should have people who want to be actually like their job. Like their attitude shouldn't be like you bothering them because you asking them to do things to make you comfortable as a customer.
Yeah, we shouldn't. Thank you very much. So, do we have a music spotlight? Listen, I don't want us to just be giving the music spotlight to people that don't deserve it. So, do you have one to that?
I don't have a music spotlight, but I do want to highlight a clothing brand that has beautiful clothing, and it is my guy Smith, and it's called Actively Black. Actively Black. This is a shirt. Look, see this?
Let me see. More confident. Okay.
Yeah, this is one of the shirts.
Muhammad Ali. Black, confident, and cocky.
Yeah, Actively Black, man. So he sent me a bunch of stuff. Shout out to him. Listen to me. It is quality sportswear. Quality sportswear. They sent you a whole box of stuff.
I got stuff. I'm getting ready to start going through it for my travels.
Shout out to Lainey Smith. Shout out to Actively Black. If you do not have some of their clothing, then you need to go on activelyblack.com right now. They partner with Allen Iverson. I've seen Obama in some of their clothing. They're doing amazing things. It's one of my premier brands. Top brands. He sent me a box of stuff that I'm gonna work out in, and some is fly stuff.
That t-shirt ain't just for working out.
It ain't just workout. It's quality sportswear, man. It's real quality, high quality sportswear.
If you look at what
I've had a pair of shorts from last year that I got that's still in tip-top shape. Like I work out in them all the time. My favorite workout shoe.
That's what I was gonna say. That little different from you. They also sent me a box, and I'm so proud of Actively Black. First of all, I remember when you first started promoting them, a lot of people didn't know who they were, and this was like at the very beginning of folks saying we need to buy black, and you were immediately on Actively Black. So shout out to you for that, especially after the Nike situation when we decided to not wear Nike. I don't even miss Nike anymore. Like actually,
I told you,
I don't even see it anymore as something like I just don't feel attached to it. So that's that. But they sent me things, and the quality, like you said, is so good. It's such a good brand. And so for people who are like, I want to support some Black owned business, but I want my stuff to be good, because sometimes, let's be clear, try to support our own and the stuff don't be that good quality. Like, I'm just saying, and it's not just our own. Sometimes we support other brands and the quality is not there. You know what I'm saying? And then anyway, it's not there. Customer service, quality. I could go on, but I won't.
And they got customer service.
The Actively Black, they definitely have good customer service, and they have a heart for the community and the people. And a lot of folks are starting to get into it. People have been supporting them. So keep supporting Actively Black.
Because I am actively Black.
All right, family. So today, we always have our friends on, but today we got our little sister on. And I'm really, really excited because this is a young woman who is an example of what we tell our young people they need to do. She's not waiting for anybody to give her position. She's not waiting to be lifted and we need to pass the torch. And no. She is blazing her own trails and carrying the torch all at the same time. And we're just, I don't know, my son, what's the word? It's not just excited, it's elated. It's elated. it just
And
blessed
proud, just really
and
proud.
proud to have this young woman as our sister, our colleague in the struggle, and just so many things. And I could actually cry because it's just that deep, knowing, watching all of us grow over time, but especially watching Brea Baker, our young sister, go from on the streets, on the ground, to putting it in a book. And now she has such an amazing project. Let me tell you a little bit about Brea Baker. Now, y'all know I don't read bios on this show. It's very limited. But in this situation, we want to make sure that our sister is properly introduced to all of you. So Brea Baker is a freedom fighter and writer and a national and global strategist. Come on now, tell them exactly who you are. She has contributed to dozens of electoral and advocacy campaigns, including the 2017 Women's March on Washington, the 2018 student walkouts against gun violence, and Jumaane Williams' successful bid for New York City Public Advocate. Brea has a BA in political science from Yale University, where she served as president of Yale's NAACP chapter and co-director of the AIDS Walk New Haven. Okay, now Brea has a book. It is called Rooted: The American Legacy of Land Theft and the Modern Movement for Black Land Ownership. It delves into one of the nation's first sins, stealing and hoarding the land, and follows Brea and her family on a personal journey to preserve her ancestors' land in North Carolina. Brea, thank you so much for joining us on TMI.
Stop. No, this is gonna make me cry because they are being too kind. Like little sister, but like I was just following around, happy to learn at y'all's feet, and Carmen and Linda, and just learn so much from the two of y'all, though. Of course, through gathering and other spaces, but it is just so special to get to talk to y'all about a book after having been the little intern volunteer assistant who was taking notes all those years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I'm very proud of you. And
Nice.
this book is just pretty much a testament of who you are. Like you always found things that needed to be spoke on. Like even when I go to your social media, you speak on the things that we need to talk about, but nobody actually highlights. And you have a knack for that. And this book right here just pretty much speaks to who you are. Like what made you say that I want to write this book and about what you wrote about?
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, right before we got on this call, you and I, Mice, were talking about grief really quickly. And grief is definitely what pushed me to write the book, and family and love for what it means to be Black and happy. And I think I had gotten to a place where I was in the work because I was angry. And then my grandfather passed away in 2019, and it kind of made me stop. It was right after Jumaane was elected. And so it was really just like stilled me and forced me to really think about what legacy meant for my family, not just for what I was doing for a theoretical community, but what am I doing for the Black people who I'm related to? What's our story? What's the legacy that I need to continue on for my grandfather now that he's not here? And the last words that he said, or some of the last words he said in his hospital bed, was "Don't sell the land." So it felt so clear. Learn more about why he cared so much about this land. Make sure that the family stays together, because grief can be a time when we are ununited. And I just wanted to make sure that we understood that we have to be really locked in and laser focused on what he saw as important. And the more research I did, the more it was like, well, now I'm not just doing it for him. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for my little one. I want more of us to have access to land as a vehicle for wealth, but also as just a place where we can be ourselves. And we're not under someone else's thumb or being policed. We're in our own space.
So you talk about America's first sin, which is stealing land, which makes it not hard for us to understand why they are so supportive of Israel as it steals land,
yes,
the land of the Palestinian people. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Like in your research, I mean, we know it theoretically. We talk about the native people to this land. We talk about how their land was stolen, it was encroached upon. how they never have been properly acknowledged for the fact that they were already here. And then we came to this country. We were, I always say, trafficked to America, and we built the nation on our backs. And I would love to hear you talk about your research, because I can imagine, again, from one perspective, we all know it, but when you started to do that research, you probably found some pretty egregious stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Because I mean, the things that we know about are the Tulsa massacres, which are horrible, horrific, right? But we think that they were few and far between. And the Tulsa massacre happened in 1921. 2 years before that was the Red Summer of 1919. But even that is like a misnomer, because it was all year, just a massacre every other day across the country. And then before then was the 1906 Atlanta massacre. And then before then was the Wilmington massacre. So number one, seeing the scale of how often Black people were being forced out of the South. So as you said, like the word trafficked, I think it's important that we use this deeper language, because yeah, we were trafficked here. And then we weren't just like moving and migrating north. We were running for our lives and being forced out of and expulsed out of, very similar to things that are happening in Palestine and the Congo and other similar places. And it actually made me feel even stronger in my resolve that there has to be a free Palestine. Because if I know what happened to my family in North Carolina, what happened to a lot of Black families across Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, etc., I know intimately what a Palestinian family who is watching their village be turned into an Israeli settlement, seeing olive groves be transformed into like tourism spots for settlers. Like, it's, you watch your dreams literally get ripped from under you. In the case of Palestinians, you're watching bulldozers literally crush your homes. In the cases of Black people, they're burning all Black towns, lynching people, forcing you north. And from a distance, you have to watch a new thing get built on what was yours. Like Lake Lanier, right? Like that was a Black town that they said, we're going to put a lake over this. And like, you have to watch now, like, you know, generations later, decades later, you have to watch white people get on jet skis on a lake where there are cemeteries under there. There were churches, there were schools, there were homes. And that happens in a lot of places. And it's not always the overt violence like the massacres. Sometimes it's the violence of eminent domain. It could be a lot of different things, but a lot of policy and outright violence has been used to take people, like Black people's life savings, dreams, everything we work towards. So when people say things like, well, we got to work together, like insert community. And it's like, we have always worked together. It's just right at the time that we're succeeding, jealousy makes white supremacy say, ooh, that needs to be mine. I deserve it more than you. And that's what needs to be stopped.
That's amazing. So give us a little bit of your personal, you know, situation when your grandfather said, don't sell the land. So what was the process like for that? And was there people trying to take the land from you? Like, what was the process that happened with that?
Yeah, well, thankfully, when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother was still living, so it was still in her hands. And then after that, it was put into a trust, and a land trust for our family to kind of hold on to. And that's important for us to know, is that you need more than just a standard will, or more than just, well, I want it to be this person's. Like, you really got to get the paperwork to really shore up these assets, because Black people, we are resilient, we are innovative, so we can make some money, but are we going to be able to pass on an inheritance that the next generation can still get? So I feel grateful that it is still in our family since he's passed away. But the larger story of our family absolutely has a lot of theft in it. So our family still has about 100 acres in North Carolina, which is huge to me. But when I was doing the research, we used to have a 600-acre farm in like the 30s. And it's like, so we owned more and had more as a family. Like we had more equity as a family almost 100 years ago than we do now in a post-racial America. So, and that's the story of a lot of Black families. And again, like families that were starting over in Chicago, Detroit, New York, Oakland, Newark, they weren't selling their land and starting over with the profits. You were running and you didn't get to bring it with you. So there's a lot of wealth that has been left behind in the South, or stolen and kept in the South, but out of Black people's hands. But I'm still grateful that we do have the little bit, or the not so little bit. 100 acres is something beautiful. We have a substantive family plot still, which is really, really beautiful. But I know that in 2 generations, it went from 600 to 100. So I'm trying to make sure that it only grows from here and doesn't continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller.
So what would you say is the most important thing that you have learned on this journey?
I mean, I always knew this, but it's important to realize how hard it is for Black people to hold on to our stuff so that we understand and appreciate what it means to keep it. And like, there's a lot of critique of, oh, well, grandma didn't keep the brownstone. But who was helping her with the property taxes? Who was being a part of and making sure that she knew that you were interested in keeping that going? And we can't let our elders retire with assets that feel like burdens to them, but could be equalizers for us. We have to have deeper intergenerational conversations with our elders, know their stories, know what they have. Because a lot of us are like, oh, yeah, my family used to kind of have some land, and we don't even know the full story of it, whether anyone in the family is still tied to it. And so we kind of lose sight of acres that we do have or homes that we do have just because it kind of goes to disrepair. So I think the biggest thing is just how important it is to talk about these things, especially as Black people, and then for white people to do the same. Like, there are white people who inherit things and they never critique where it came from, why they are able to have certain leisure and ease that other people don't. And even if you don't think of yourself as someone who's super, super wealthy, if you inherited part of a business, a small family home, stocks, whatever, that's something that a lot of Black families have not. And not because we don't deserve it or haven't worked for it, but because it's been taken from us. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Just listening to what you're saying, when I think of Black people that I know, older Black people, it was always like a big secret. Everything they had was a secret. You don't talk about it. You don't tell people how much it costs or how it came into ownership of it. It's like, that's nobody else's business. Hide the papers, put it in the floor in the house. But that's not helpful to a second generation or a third generation that is attempting to learn or that would like to learn so that they could keep the legacy going. And I think I hear you saying, when you say talk about it, we're not saying just sit around and be like, yeah, buy a home, hold up. We're saying give the details of all of what has taken place, and then also be willing to show the family where things currently stand.
Exactly that. And like you said, it's a trauma response to want to not get too wide with it, knowing that if too many people know, they want what's yours. I mean, that was even a conversation I had with my aunt. I'm thinking I'm being the family activist. I'm like, Auntie, I don't like that you have guns, gun violence and all this stuff. And she's like, Brea, we live in North Carolina. We are a Black family with a lot of acres that a lot of people want. We have to protect ourselves and what is ours. And it gave me a different understanding and nuance that I still fight for gun safety and gun regulation and gun protection. And we can't leave Black families defenseless, and we can't force Black families to put themselves out in the open. But at the same time, there's a difference between telling strangers on the internet your business and telling the family. And what used to happen when I was young is at the family reunion, the elders would tell the story of the family. There was a shirt that had a family tree on the back, and we would just record this oral history and people knew what it was. And I think that is a missing recipe that we got to get back to, because other people don't need to know, but we do need to have intra conversations so that younger generations value it and don't settle for a shoebox apartment that they rent forever, when they know that there's land that is their birthright, when a home is their birthright, when kids running free in a backyard is their birthright too.
So there's been a lot of talk about deed theft, right? We had a Black woman on here. Actually, it was Queen Afua, and she was telling us her parent, or I think she said it was her grandmother's home or something, that she was still fighting for a home that she grew up in. And they just pretty much told her that she didn't. So do you know anything about that? Especially, and we were also talking about the Black farmers what they've been dealing with their land. So give us a little insight that you have on those things.
Yeah, that's a really important part too, the food justice side of it. Because isn't it interesting that we go from Black people are the forced laborers, we're forced to work this land, to then just a generation and a half later, we are in food apartheid in communities where there are only bodegas and delis and fast food, and we can't access the food that our ancestors were forced to grow. And that's also something that I say is like, we were forced to work the land, and when they couldn't profit off of our free labor, it was like, okay, well, now we want y'all to have nothing to do with it. And so now we're so detached from it, where organic food and clean air and clean water used to be a birthright for us and normal for us. My grandmother used to say that, like, we used to grow our own cucumbers, grow our own fruit, have our
Right.
own pigs and chickens. And now we're forced into these Flint and Newark sort of communities where having a healthy lifestyle is really not even up to you. It's up to the infrastructure around you and whether the powers that be will let you have clean air, clean food, clean water, you know? And so to your point of those sorts of like attacks, and the deed theft and how that affects farmers. I mean, deed theft in general is a big thing. There's a documentary called Silver Dollar Road that kind of digs into this, and a Black family that had grown up on this land their whole life were told that they were trespassing on land that they'd lived on their whole lives. They were
Right.
like middle-aged at this point, were told they were trespassing and that if they didn't leave, they would go to jail. They didn't leave, and they actually incarcerated these, like, I think 60-year-old Black men who had lived on this land their whole life. That happens all the time. Sometimes it's they're just hoping you can't prove that you have the deed. And if a paper gets lost or whatever and you can't prove it, then they've shuffled some paperwork around and now they can't prove it. And now you're just lost in paperwork. And if your lawyer can't handle being tied up with their lawyer, then you just can't afford the fight. Other times it's overt, like in the Wilmington massacre, they literally were burning deeds. So after the massacre was over, survivors wouldn't be able to prove whether they owned anything in the community. That also happened in Tulsa. So there's a lot of shady, shifty, manipulative stuff. And that's definitely something to be vigilant of. This idea that, you know, it's easy to build a Black Wall Street is, look, you can build it, but to protect it, to maintain it, to keep it going is the hard part, because white supremacy will do this all the time. I mean, the move bombing in Philly was way more recent than some of these massacres I'm talking about. And that was like, what, the 70s, the mid 70s. So this government has shown that it will turn the other way or be actively participating in dispossessing us. And I think that is the challenging part, is how to keep people optimistic and motivated to keep fighting for it. But I think we just have to, because it is ours. We deserve it. I mean, our ancestors, if they didn't fight, we wouldn't be here having the conversation like we are. And I just feel so lucky to have learned from people like you two, from people like Mr. B, from people who just have been relentless about speaking up about things that feel so like the odds feel so stacked against us, but still we keep sounding the alarm. So we just got to keep fighting and keep trying new things. But self-protection is definitely part of it, because they will try and convince us we don't own what we own.
That's right.
Well, here's the last question that I have for you. And I just want to thank you for giving us your time and your brilliance, because, you know, my son made a very good point at the top of this interview. And that is that you are always on a different vibe. Like, you're educating people, your content is different from what everybody else is talking about. So while folks are running around up and down about Trump this and Trump that, you'll be on your page talking about land ownership, talking about women's rights, young people, you know, and young people's power, and so on and so forth. So I appreciate the fact that you are a person who dances to your own tune. And it's not offbeat. It's always still on. I was watching at my family reunion, the line dances. As you know, that's a big deal. Everybody does a great line dance. They got about 25 of them,
Right.
Alabama. And I have some cousins that are so skilled at the line dances that they go in the opposite direction in the midst of the crowd. So everybody's going one way and they're going in the opposite direction, but it's never off key. It's always on key, and it stands out. And I think that, you know, I think of you that way. But I want you, and I want you to speak to this really quickly. There are people who are advocates for land ownership. They are advocates for economic development and economic sustainability in our communities. They are advocates for us being smarter about investments and savings and all of that. And some of these same people believe that the political process is not that important, that voting is not important. All of these candidates ain't no good. And therefore, I'm not voting for anybody. I'm just going to focus on getting money. And in a time where we see the Tulsa massacre proceedings being thrown out of the highest court, at a time when we see the Fearless Fund under attack, which is an effort to help fund Black women's businesses by Black women, at a time when we see an effort, and not just an effort, a very successful campaign to dismantle DEI practices within corporate institutions, educational institutions, government institutions. What do you say? You're a younger person too. You have your finger on the pulse of what is happening with young people. Do you think that at this point voting is passé and we should just be focusing on getting money, or do you see value in both?
I definitely see value in both. I'm not someone who thinks any one strategy can work by itself, because again, you can be focused on getting money, and if you're not building up protections and safety nets, then that can just get snatched from you. And if you only focus on voting, which some people do, and present that as like the thing that's going to save democracy, when it doesn't save democracy, then you disappoint people. Because it's like, you just told me this was the most consequential thing I could do in my lifetime. I did it, and it doesn't feel consequential if things feel the same. So I think it's both. And I think those who are pushing people to vote have to stop pretending as though it's going to be this like 180 degrees change. A lot of things will be the same, but there's also a lot we can change. Voting is not just for the president. There's so many down ballot positions that we vote for, commissioners of agriculture, right? Jobs that we're like, we don't even really think about, but have so much say over things like what you can do with your land. Like, for example, you could buy a bunch of land and someone could tell you, oh, that's zoned a certain way. You can't build that business there. You can't do that thing there. So now you have this whole plan for yourself, but because you didn't know that the person in office doesn't want you building a marijuana business in his state, now you know what I mean? So there's an importance in addressing it from all areas. And I think that young people who feel jaded just have to remember, you're not voting because you think that that's going to be the one thing you can do to save the world. You're voting because you need a range of tools in your arsenal. And that's important. So the last thing I'll say, another example that I'll give as the last thing is the Bruce's Beach example. Everyone was really excited about this family in California that gets their beachfront land back after Kavon Ward and the organization Where's My Land fight for them to get this land. And they're given this land back, but when the land was taken from them, it was beachfront property with a resort on it. When it's given back to them, it's just the property. No buildings on it, nothing they can move into, nothing they can immediately profit off of. That's a tax burden in the state of California. There's no way for this working class family to make any money off of this land. So when they had to sell it back to the state, people were upset. But it's like, what you should have fought for, or not, this isn't to actually come at the activists, but what we can be fighting for on all ends is give the people their land back, and they should get a property tax exemption. And I'm fighting for a change to the property tax code in general so that Black families can get more relief. And, like, those are the sorts of things that we need elected officials doing. Or like in New York, if I didn't believe in voting, we wouldn't have someone like a Jumaane Williams, who we know is always in a position to use his power for the people. So I think that we just have to remember that there are local offices that we can elect people to that can make a huge difference. And at the least, we can mitigate harm and decide who do we want to be working against as we fight for more. But if you only focused on getting your money and not focused on who's trying to take your money, then you're looking at only one hand, and there's lots of hands moving.
That's an excellent thing. I just want you to end this by just telling the people, what do you want them to get when they read this book? What is your hopes that everyone who gets this book, because everyone needs to get it, but what is your hopes that they get from it?
Thank y'all for having me. My hope is that people will read this book and see that reparations is inevitable, that we can't talk about it as a we should have had it. It would be nice to have. No, reparations are inevitable. You're not an ally if you don't believe in reparations. You are not for our community if you do not believe in reparations, because it is the only thing that can achieve bridging racial wealth gaps and addressing some of the environmental injustice that we're dealing with, and getting to put Black people in a position to finally be autonomous, to be in control of our own futures, our own businesses, our own families. So I hope that people read it and are excited to work more towards reparations.
Brea Baker.
That's a word. See, listen, I just want to say one more thing before we go. Her mama is bad. Her mama preached a sermon at the book thing, and I know where you get it from, because that's a bad woman. So shout out to Mama Baker. We appreciate you. We love you, Brea. Continue to be great like you've always been. I always knew that this is who you were, and I'm just proud to see you just budding like a butterfly.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm gonna have to tell her you said that.
Yeah. Yes.
Brea Baker, rooted, pick it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brea. We love you.
Love you too.
Love y'all.
Shout out to Brea, man. Love her to death, man. Book, gotta read the
Love her to
book.
life. Love her to life. Love her to
Love her
life.
to life. That's right. Love her to life.
Yeah.
Make sure you go out, get that book, read it. It's touching. It's real. It's every
Educational.
That's right, and it's every element of who she is. So now we get to my I don't get it. I posted a meme on my page last week, and it was funny to me. You know, it was a guy. He was with a girl, and she started twerking, and he was like, "All right, yeah. Now, what else do you do?" And then she just gave him this look like she was confused, and I was like, "Huh?" And then he was like, "What else do you do?" And then she still was confused. And then it was this slow motion voice. He's like, "What else do you do?" And then she just still was just stuck, like she didn't get it. So, you know, and the moral of the story is, like, there are some girls that all they can do is twerk. They don't have anything else to offer. And we know there's some men that don't have anything to offer too, but it was funny, you know, and there was a lot of different comments on there. And then it brought me, you know, there was one of the comments where a woman was like, "Well, y'all need to not, you know, y'all should stop liking pages like that. As girls, that's all they do, and all y'all do is like it." And then it was some girls like, "Well, what else? What do he have to offer for her to have to offer more than that?" So there was just different comments and different that. And one of the things it brought me to was just thinking about how we are portraying our women, right? Like, and it's not to take anything away from women who twerk. Like, I love to see a woman who twerk. There's no man, you know, there's very few, I'm not gonna say nobody. There are very few men who are heterosexual males that don't like to see a woman who got a nice body twerking and working her body. That's just something a man is gonna like, naturally. You know, but when you looking to date, or you actually looking to take something serious, you want to see more than that, right? And I think for me, there was this conversation about BET Awards, and I really didn't get involved in it because I didn't, you know, I don't want to throw shade at anybody or any individual. You know, a lot of these women are talented. They just know how to twerk and be talented. But there are women in this industry who don't twerk, who are talented, who are skilled, who are dope rappers, who can dance, who can do all those things, but they just rather not twerk. It's just not something that they're comfortable with or something that they choose to do. You know, so when I looked at the BET Awards, and there was people like, "Oh, that's all we got," and I said, "Damn," you know, and then I compared it to that meme, and the reaction I started saying, you know, are we not doing ourselves a disservice?
Are we doing ourselves a disservice? Yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah, we're actually doing ourselves a disservice when all we show is one genre of female doing something, right? Because it makes it seem like that's all we have. And when you say Black entertainment television, if that's the only entertainment we got, you know, then it's wrong. I mean, because I know it's not the only entertainment we got. You know what I'm saying? We have artists like Tink. We have artists like Rhapsody. We have artists like Lady London. You know what I'm saying? We have artists that I know that are dope, that nobody, and they're not twerking. That's just not what they do. They're not saying they can't, but that's just not the way that they promote their music. And when we're not highlighting them, we're not giving them the same platforms and stages that we give those who do it, then it is an imbalance. You know, and I think that's what's happening in society altogether for me. There's just too much of an imbalance one way or the other. Like, what happened to the balance? What happened to where we had conscious music? You know, we had street orientated music. We had just fun music. We had love song. Like, it's either this or that, right? It's just all the way this or all the way that. And it's like, I think that we need to start highlighting more things because, you know, like, men are either jaded with just seeing somebody twerk all the time, or that's all they want to see because that's all they've been given. You know, you just start taking it as that's all it really is. And I think it's so much more, especially as Black people in entertainment, television. I think it's so much more that we have to offer that we actually aren't given. And, you know, and it's making it's so lopsided. The view of what Black women is and what Black entertainment is just changing for, and I think it's a negative, you know, connotation just attached to it now. And I just wonder, I think we have to be a lot more intentional. And so I just don't get, what I don't get is why aren't these platforms highlighting different styles of music, different styles of entertainment for females? Why isn't that something that people are intentional about doing?
Well, here's my thing. Yes, balance is key. I always talk about it because I am not, you know, one to condemn, which I understand that you're also not condemning, you know, any artist, right? I don't condemn them. You know, people have come to me and they're like, oh, you need to be saying something about Sexy Red and Sukiana and this one and that one because this filth and this and this that. By the way, every now and then, depending on what the song is, I be bumping a little Sexy Red. So I'm not
sexy.
I'm not gonna be,
if you ain't, everybody say get it sexy. It ain't nobody that
and, you know, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite there. I also know that there was that people like, well, one person said to me, no, it's different. It's much more raunchy. Well, I don't know how much more raunchy you could get than Little Kim on the cover of her album where she was kneeling down or squatting down, and you could literally see hair on the sides of her vagina. That's a fact. So it's been raunchy. Adina Howard was raunchy. Now, perhaps the times were a little different. So it's just like you and me, right? Like, and everybody else out here. We used to wear the afro, and now it's the fade and the whatever, the Caesar, and things evolve, people change, but the message was still popping coochie, sucking pee, selling coochie, getting money. There was the same exact message. The words is just a little bit different. I am not one of those people who's going to sit here and say, oh, you know, I want to condemn these particular individuals. What I do think is true is that there has to be a balance. Now, BET will say, well, they look a lot at album sales, right? They look at popularity, album sales, and numbers, social media impact, all of that. So if they find that a person, you know, is doing great numbers, of course, they are going to put them on the show. And then those people whose numbers may not be that good, those people don't make it. And I'm not quoting BET, but I'm saying I know the mindset because I've been in these media meetings and I know how they think, right? So, but the problem with that, and I watched some of the old timers do something that was groundbreaking. And that was that they would mix in the people who you don't necessarily listen to or hear from all the time. They would sandwich them between things, whether it be at a rally, you know, it could be a new person speaking, you know what I'm saying, that nobody really knows, but they got a powerful message. So they're going to put them on right after Tamika Mallory or whoever, the big, whoever the other, whatever the better, bigger speaker is, whoever it is, the president of the United States, whoever. They'll have you introduce the president of the United States.
Just like when you think about the girl who did the poetry, like I never heard of that.
Exactly, Amanda, I forget her last name, but absolutely, Goldman, I think. Absolutely, same exact thing. And I have something to say about her, but I'm gonna wait until another time. Put that on my list of things thought of the day, because since she called for a ceasefire, I don't see her as much as I used to. And I'm gonna do some research to figure out what happened. But I remember looking at her page, she was calling for a ceasefire in her comment section. Baby, these people got the nerve to talk about hate and division. I can't even, I'm at the point where I need a trap on my mouth, like a censor, because I'm ready to say things that will probably just get me blackballed for the rest of my life. And I'm already hanging off the blackball list. So whatever. Anyway, so that's what they did. It was masterful how they give you a little bit of what you like or what's being the shiny thing, and also make sure you get other things in the midst of that. Now, BT will say, well, we did that with Taraji. We let her do her political, her political component of her hosting, and that made the numbers for research around Project 2025 go up. It increased obviously significantly overnight because of what she said. So they will say they do that. But with the talent piece, that balance is important, and they need to be intentional about that. To be quite honest with you, I went back and looked at the artists, all of the women, right? Because I wanted to see, were they extremely naked, as I had heard. They really kind of weren't. If you really go back and look at their outfits, they were not completely, undressed. Even Meg, her outfit is sexy, very sexy and very suggestive. But if you look at it, she has on tights. She has on tights. She has on all types of things that's covering her actual skin. Glorilla, yeah, she went out there and shook her little booty, but she just had a little bra top on and regular big pants. Like, I really looked. Some of it was sexy, but it wasn't all. It wasn't all overly sexy. It's the content, though, of what they're saying.
That's
that
what
I
I'm
know. It's the
And it's not
content.
just the content, it's the overall performance and everything, right? So
Yeah.
their dress, at some point there's twerking, there's sexually suggestive inside the music, inside the performance. And I'm just trying to say, there are artists
That just don't do that.
that don't do that. And they should
I
be
agree.
highlighted. Like,
I agree. I mean, I agree with you. And I think the standard, the double standard, it spans across many different areas. That what you're speaking of is not just in music, it's in politics, it's in everything. It's in everything. It's in social justice. It's in every world where people, it can go both ways. It's either the super conservative is the most popular, or the people who are most off the chain radical, just saying anything, even if they don't know what they're talking about. That is what people get attracted to, because they are loud and they have the most impressions, and so people who actually think don't always get the type of promotion and get the awareness around them and their thoughts and ideas. So I see it. I see that the balance is definitely problematic, and it just has to be. One of the problems that we have, because again, everybody's looking for the one-hit wonder, looking to try to make the algorithm pop so that their point of expression can actually make it to the can actually make it to the masses. So I get that. But sometimes it's just a matter of actually calling our people in, right? Like actually sitting down and writing a letter to BET or making a phone call to say, hey, this is what we see, you know what I'm saying? Versus us getting on social media and being like, F BET, F Meg, F Lotto, F Cardi, F this one and that one. That's really not, it's actually, because I feel like,
I'm not saying that at all.
I know that. I know you know. I'm just speaking generally. There's so much right now. There is so much divisiveness that is happening. Like it's so much. I can feel it in my skin. You can see it coming up. Whenever the politics of a country is awry, the people, you can see it as well, right? So you got that. You have so many different division points, and I don't know. I feel like we're in a place and time right now where we got to do a little bit more behind the scenes conversing, so we could try to bring our people along versus thinking that we could just push them off a cliff. Because I don't think that, I don't know that that's an effective strategy.
I agree with it. I want to hear from our viewers. Like, what do you think? Do you think that there needs to be a balance? Do you like the way it is? Is it, like, I just want to know, because maybe it's just me. But I know there's so much talent, and I love, once again, I love Mag. You know what I'm saying? I love Lotto. I think Lotto is dope. I think
I love Lotto.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but I also love Rhapsody. I love Lady London. Like, I want to see those type of artists highlighted.
Yeah, I'm not exactly. I'm advocating for balance. I am not advocating to diminish these women who, through their own art and expression, are doing their thing, because nobody was out. Well, not nobody, because there was some people out there, but Sir Mix-a-Lot, they were selling coochie.
Yeah.
Luke was selling coochie, right? So don't tell me it's different. Don't tell me it's different. Puff was selling coochie too.
What I'm saying, but we had Nas, we had Rakim.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm advocating for balance.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating, because let me tell you something. I love me. Lotto says she Big Mama. I love that.
I'm Big Mama. That brings us to the end of another TMI show. Shout out to our guest, Brea Baker, our sister. Her book, Rooted. Make sure that you go get it. It is an amazing book. She's an amazing individual, as you see throughout this interview. We love her. Follow her on social media. Make sure you follow us, TMI_show. Send us your requests. Who do you want us to interview? What do you want us to say? Tell us if you love us. Tell us you hate us. Let us know that we number one, because we know we the number one podcast in the world, and we continue to be number one. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D is not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
That's how we own it. That's how we own it. That's how we own it. Oh, that's how we own it.
Check out the video version of TMI
every single Wednesday on iWoman.tv.
That's how we own it.